Hi everyone, in this video I'm gonna go over the first build I'm playing in Path of Exile 2 Early Access, which is going to be Poison and Bleed Slams on a Gemling Legionnaire. The basic idea is to use Earthquake, scaling poison damage, paired with Shockwave Totem as your bread and butter like clearing setup. And then you're gonna be proliferating poisons with Herald of Plague, breaking armor with Corrosion support, and then for single target you're gonna be using Bleed, scaling on Sunder, which against targets with fully broken armor is guaranteed to crit, allowing for some pretty insane damage scaling, which I think will rival Hammer of the Gods in terms of damage, but without the 24-second cooldown. However, I do want to add Hourglass support, turning it into an 8-second cooldown to make sure you have ample time to break armor between hits and to let Fist of War recover. Yeah, and that's pretty much the basic concept, not very complicated. So first of all, I just want to say this isn't going to be a super detailed step-by-step build guide, since the game isn't even out yet, and I still need to iron out all the details, which can only be done by actually playing the game. So there's gonna be some speculation and conjecture, but at the end of the day, it's still a pretty simple build, so there's no doubt that it's gonna work, it's gonna function. But the question is, how good is it gonna be? I don't know. And what's the best way to build it? So to be clear, I am actually playing this probably on softcore SSF, and I'll be making some updates, hopefully 1 or 2 days into the league, if you want to see how good or how bad it's going. But yeah, I'm mostly gonna talk about like what skill gems and supports you might use. Then I'll go over the Ascendancy choices and briefly touch on the passive skill tree, but that information is really incomplete, so I don't want to try to go into too much detail there. It's gonna be very broad strokes, and then maybe some campaign leveling stuff. But again, I haven't actually leveled this. I don't know how it's gonna feel. But yeah, first off, I do want to talk a little bit about how damaging ailments work in PoE 2. It is a little bit different from PoE 1, where it is ailment damage is based on the final pre-mitigation hit damage. So the bigger the hit, the bigger poison or bleed or ignite you can get. And that is actually not how it worked in PoE 1. There it was just the base damage, right? But here, things like area damage or like attack damage is also going to scale the ailment. So any ailment build is pretty much going to be like a hybrid build of hit and dot from the ailment. So poison is, I think, 25% of hit damage per second over 2 seconds. And bleed is 15% damage per second over 4 seconds. But you can aggravate that to 45%. So yeah, those are the ones that we're going to be using in this build. And maybe a little bit of ignite as well. So ailments working with crit, because it's now based on the hit damage, makes Sunder look really appealing for like bleed and well, yeah, for any ailment, I guess. But here it's gonna be bleed, so it also has a 100% increased critical damage bonus built in. So you have increased critical damage bonus, and then you have plus 2 critical damage bonus, which are multiplicative with each other. And of course, in PoE 1 you just had crit damage multiplier, so that's a little bit different as well. I think crits are also baseline like 200% damage instead of 150% of your damage. So crits are very good. Okay, so let's actually get into the skill gems here. So Earthquake is a skill that slams the ground and leaves jagged ground that explodes after 3 seconds in an aftershock. And then Shockwave Totem, when you hit the jagged ground, pops it before the 3-second duration that it normally takes. So those go very well, those are intended to go together basically. And then on the Earthquake we have Poison Chance, Multiple Poison, and Corrosion. So this is going to be doing poison damage and breaking the armor. And then Pulverize is just more damage and more AoE, and melee physical damage, also more damage, but both of these also makes the attack speed a bit slower, so maybe you will only want to use one of these, and you could put in less duration support maybe instead of one of those, and maybe that will feel smoother for mapping. You could also use deadly poisons here just to get more poison damage. Not sure, we'll have to test what feels better, but like generally scaling, having less attack speed on your earthquake doesn't matter very much, because your it's pretty much balanced around the aftershock as well, which doesn't really care about your attack speed, because it's going to be limited by the duration and the amount of Shockwave Totem hits. So yeah, but yeah, with Shockwave Totem you have increased limit, so you can have 2 instead of 1. Then faster attack, so it just attacks faster, you get more of the pops. And then I'm gonna have Jagged Ground here, just to stack more Jagged Grounds on top of each other. And obviously that one actually replaces the previous Jagged Ground from the Earthquake, so it's kind of nice to always have the enemy on Jagged Ground, because you're gonna have some effects that make it so, like on the skill tree there's a passive node, a notable I think, that gives you like more damage against enemies on Jagged Ground. So yeah, Jagged Ground, support. And then I have Maim, which we don't exactly know what Maim does, but if it's similar to PoE1, it's gonna make them slower and increase the amount of physical damage they take, maybe. And then for the last one I have Withering Touch here, which does need you to actually hit with chaos damage. So maybe you would need some flat poison damage on your gear, or you could use added chaos damage instead of one of the other supports, which Wither, I guess, is going to increase the amount of chaos damage they take, which is good for the poison. I know they said that you don't want increased chaos damage for poisons that you deal with physical damage, because that's not going to work together. But in terms of damage taken, I assume it would work, because the poison is dealing chaos damage. So, but yeah, maybe you would just put Culling Strike here or something else, if Withering isn't good, or you can't get the chaos on hit, or sorry, flat chaos damage to your attacks. But also, like, maybe it's gonna be hard to get 6 links for all your skills. I don't know. So maybe you're just gonna use the most important supports here for most of the like secondary skills, right? And focus on getting 6 links on your Earthquake and Sunder. But yeah, I'm not entirely sure how that will work. So then, yeah, for the Sunder setup, we have Sunder with Bleed Chance, Critical Damage, Fist of War, Hourglass, and Brutality. Like I said, this makes it into a cooldown. This one basically has a 6-second cooldown anyways. You want time to break the armor continuously, so you can benefit from the 100% crit chance, or the guaranteed crit. And I think critical damage is best put here, since you're not going to be critting with any other skills. But keep in mind, this tooltip is wrong compared to the last tooltip that we've seen. I think a lot of these tooltips, if you look at this planner, is gonna be different when you actually log in on December 6th. So keep that in mind. This information is not necessarily up to date. But yeah, then we have Leap Slam, which is you definitely want a movement skill to get out of like bad situations, because your dodge rule doesn't have phasing. So you need to be able to leap out of bad situations. But I also have this as like a stun setup here with Overpower, Close Combat, and Concentrated Effect. So for more damage and for stun build-up. And then Enduring Stuns to get an Endurance charge when you stun with it. And then Mana Leech for some better Mana Sustain during mapping, because I think you're gonna be leap slamming a fair amount during mapping. But also maybe during bosses. If you're ending the broken armor very quickly... Oh, airplane flying by. Sorry, there was an airplane flying by. So if you're breaking the armor a lot, you might fit this in to benefit from the 500% more stun buildup. Because maybe you're gonna be breaking the armor very quickly if you get a lot of poison damage here. So I don't know, maybe you're gonna benefit from that. But it's gonna have pretty good stun build-up anyway, because it hits pretty hard and you have Overpower. So I think you're gonna get a decent amount of stun build-up here. And you do want to stun every now and then for Seismic Cry, because if you hit Seismic Cry when you have a heavy stunned enemy, your next slam is gonna do an Aftershock, which seems pretty good. An additional Aftershock. So works with both Sunder and Earthquake. And yeah, the Seismic Cry isn't amazing, I don't think. It has some stun build up and damage of its own. But you do want to benefit from all the supports, like Empowered Damage, Raging Cry, which builds rage when you click it, Perpetual Charge, just since we're not going to have that much generation, I think it's nice to not consume sometimes. Reduced cooldown and life tap to make it easier on the mana. But then maybe you're going to want to use Infernal Cry more for mapping, since it makes enemies explode, but you don't really care about... I don't think you care about either of the effects much, right? Because the fire damage doesn't benefit your poison damage or your bleed damage. But the explosions might be nice. So for mapping, you mostly just want it for the like empowered damage and yeah, all the benefits, the rage. There's also a node on the tree that makes your empowered attacks aggravate bleeding, so that's also why you definitely want to have Warcries in your build. But then Infernal Cry with Hammer of the Gods, because I do have a Hammer of the Gods set up here as well. But I have it as like just like a nuke you want to press when the enemy is on low life. So I have Execute here. So yeah, Bloodlust. I think the enemy is always going to be bleeded, because if you have some global bleeding chance, you're going to have it on Earthquake as well. Like 20% probably, maybe 40%, because it would be nice to have a 100% bleed chance on your Sunder. So you have 60% from the support and 40% global. That would be good. So Bloodlust, Execute, so it deals damage on low life. Then I have added fire damage and ignition, together with the fire damage from Infernal Cry, which I think is going to be able to ignite the enemy. Because you get 100% of your damage as extra fire versus bosses. Hopefully that will be able to ignite. And then I have second wind here actually, so you just, yeah, when the enemy hits low life, you can just press Infernal Cry, and your Warcries are gonna exert 2 attacks together with a node on the tree. So yeah, the enemy hits low life, that's when you press your Hammer of the Gods twice and just hopefully ignite them and bring the enemy down very quickly from that point. So that's all the active skills. Then I have a Blasphemy Aura with Temporal Chains, which is gonna it's gonna slow the enemy, but also make our ailments last longer on them. I think Enfeeble is gonna be a very good aura as well. If you can get both, that would be amazing. But yeah, if you have to just pick one, I think Temporal Chains is gonna be better. I assume all the slows are gonna like stack together from Jagged Ground and stuff like that, right? Yeah, they will. And you have Heightened Curse, which is just a more cursed effect, right? Seems like definitely a good choice. I'm not entirely sure how much Spirit we're gonna have. So this one is 30 by default, and Herald Plague as well. I don't know how many supports we're gonna be able to fit in, but yeah, increased effect would be nice on Blasphemy, Encumbrance if it works. That's gonna be great as well. And then yeah, for the Herald of Plague, I'm using Vitality, Clarity, Precision, and Cannibalism for some. Obviously, the Cannibalism and Vitality is gonna be good for your sustain. Cannibalism only in mapping. Precision, just accuracy, and some mana regeneration on the Clarity. I think it will be pretty easy to fit these supports, but again, I don't know exactly how much Spirit we're gonna have in the end game. Keep in mind, if we are going, yeah, I guess I'll just talk a little bit about the Ascendancy here. So for the Ascendancy, if you take this node, you're gonna have 3 more slots that you can play around with. If you're not sure what to put in those, if you're taking this one as well, you can just put whatever support gems you need to maximize a resist that you want to get more max res in. So probably that's gonna be fire, because of some nodes on the tree, and you could maybe use Cloak of Flame to convert your damage taken into fire. That would be probably pretty good. Just get 90% fire res and use Cloak of Flame, and you're probably pretty set on defense. But yeah, we don't know all the nodes on the Gemling Legionnaire yet. We don't know what's behind adaptive capability, and we don't know what's before crystalline potential, and we don't know either of these, I suppose. So there's still some mystery there. It's gonna be fun to see on launch what they end up being. So far, I think I'm taking adaptive capability almost for sure, because the goal is to use Giant's Blood, which lets you dual wield two-handed maces, which is going to be really good for damage, because I'm not sure if it's shown here on this tooltip. It's not, but you actually, when you're dual wielding, you hit with both your weapons, but with 30% less damage, right? But you combine them, so it's effectively 40% more damage, which is just a 40% multiplier. That's insane. So Giant's Blood is what you want to go for, but that's gonna make it hard to fit in all these green and we have some blue support gems as well, but adaptive capability makes that super easy to just stack strength and fit in all the supports you need. And then I think quality of skill gems is also just gonna be super strong. Well, maybe not super strong, but it's just really solid. They've said they want 1% quality to basically be 1% damage. So you're looking at 12% more damage, but then also quality on like your war cries and your curse. So it's probably gonna end up being a little bit more. But it's also not like mechanically required for the build. So if these end up being like really good, hey, let's go for those instead. And yeah, we don't know what's before here either, so that could be really good. Yeah, I think that's basically it. Some question marks regarding the Ascendancy, but I think it's gonna be at least solid, and it's gonna be the best way to fit in Giant's Blood and all the support gems that you need compared to the Titan, which, let's look a little bit at the Titan as well. So you have really strong stuff like this that just gives you straight up more stats, more maximum life. They have one that gives you double armor from your body armor. I don't think it's maybe not shown here, but yeah, you just have more aftershocks. You get free Fist of War. It's obviously the slam, the intended, so to say, class for slams. It has these heavy stun as well stuff. Yeah, but it doesn't seem too strong. Like, yeah, and it's gonna be hard to fit in. I think it's gonna be obviously the best for like a cookie cutter slam build, but it also starts at a slightly worse maybe positioning on the tree, because you want to get a little bit closer to these poison nodes. Yeah, Pathfinder. Maybe if you wanted to go like a full poison build, that could be good, but this is a poison and bleed build. So yeah, I think Gemling Legionnaire is the best compromise in order to guarantee you can use Giant's Blood, and it's still very generically strong, and yeah, I like it. So for the actual passive tree, like I said, I'm not gonna go into too much detail because there's so many nodes we don't know what they do, right? There's just, who knows. But you're gonna start over here, obviously, and you're probably gonna want to take these bleed nodes pretty early on. If this is actually what the tree looks like, that's also another thing we don't know. This is just what they've been able to map out from like watching videos, but it could be changed, right? But get some bleeding early on. Probably go down towards Giant's Blood pretty early as well. Here you can get some aggravate nodes for bleeding. You have some two-handed nodes. Pretty much, yeah. I don't want to go into too much detail here because it's so much subject to change, right? But you want to go down towards the strength area, and then later on probably you want to start going towards the dex area for some poison stuff. But I think early on you're gonna be focusing on bleeding and taking like Warcry nodes, slam nodes, stuff like that. And yeah, I guess I'll go over some leveling stuff now as well. I think you're gonna be using pretty much the same skills. Like, you're gonna be using Earthquake early on. I don't know exactly what level you get it, but it just requires level 3. I think it's like the first tier of skills you can get on the warrior, but you can obviously get it on every class as well. But as a mercenary, you're gonna start with a crossbow, so you might have to use your crossbow for just a couple of levels, but then as soon as you get a mace and Earthquake, you're ready to go full melee, right? Hopefully. So yeah, I think you're gonna use Earthquake, but without the poison stuff early on. More focusing on bleed. You're gonna use the Shockwave Totem. Sunder is, I mean, it's very slow attack speed. It's probably just something you use on bosses and rares when you've heavy stunned them early on, before you get like Blasphemy. Because when you start slowing them, it's gonna be easier to land that Sunder. But yeah, Leap, Slam, Seismic Cry. Yeah, I think Infernal Cry is the first war cry you're gonna get. And yeah, you're gonna have to play it by ear with leveling. That's what I'm gonna do. If you're not confident in the early game leveling, you could try this on a Titan instead, on a warrior, because then it's, yeah, I think that's gonna just be simpler. But yeah, I'm gonna try it on the Mercenary, and we'll see how it goes. Like I said, I'm gonna make update videos maybe 1 or 2 days into the league, hopefully. But I don't want to yap on for too long, since again there's so much subject to change, and we'll just have to see, right? So hopefully this video has been somewhat informational or like useful anyway, and yeah, I'll see you guys after launch, and I hope you have a great time in Path of Exile 2 Early Access.